Friendly Film Fireside Chats.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome to Friendly Film Fireside Chats. I'm your host, Faith Knoll. On today's episode, we have actor, professor, director, podcast host, and many other things, Adam Paul. We talk about AI, acting, and anything else Adam and I decided to talk about. You can check out a video version of this episode on the Faith Knoll Films YouTube channel. Welcome to the chat. So I'll just say hi, Adam Paul, Professor Adam Paul. I don't know what you want me to call you in this, Adam. I always say Professor Paul.
I know you've been trained well in the film department. You can just call me Adam.
Okay, just Adam.
Yes.
Thanks for being a guest on Friendly Film Fireside Chat.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm honored.
I'm honored that you're here. So I feel like we should start with why you agreed to come on this, or like how this podcast started, because I feel like it's your fault that this podcast started. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll take some responsibility because I think it's great, and I'm a fan of yours and your creativity and your voice. You were taking a podcast class with me at UNLV, and this is the result of that class. So determining the topic and figuring out how you wanted it to exist as a thing in the world. And as we were just saying before we started recording, you're one of the few from the class who've actually, excuse me, I'm burping, who actually continued on with it, right? Who you're actually doing it. The class is over and you keep making episodes. And I think that's awesome. And I wanted to do it because I work in film and TV, and I act and I write and I produce and I direct. And I have some things to say about that, but I also just wanted to support your efforts, which is, I think, important.
Huh.
And I like being the subject of an interview. I mean, who doesn't?
Who doesn't, right? But before we get into, all of your amazing accolades and roles that you've done, I kind of want to talk about how you got to that point. Like, what was your background? How did you decide to go into the entertainment industry?
Well, I always wanted to be an actor. I don't remember a time when I didn't want to be an actor. I think I was a performer as a kid, just sort of performy. I liked, I'm teaching a voiceover class now, and voiceover, I liked animation. I liked cartoons. I had a pretty healthy imagination. And I started to do plays in like Sunday school. I went to a Reformed synagogue, and they had a little drama class you could take. And so I started to do that, and I really liked that. And then I did more in high school and got into that. And then I went to college, and I did some big shows in high school, and that was fun. And I got a lot of attention, and I liked all that. And then in college, I was an English major. I was a double major, English and theater, and I did a bunch of cool plays. And then we had this great director who visited. His name is Bob Lawson, who was just this great forward-thinking, modern visiting professor. But he just had a great take on theater that I'd never experienced before, which was this much more expansive, creative. He was a big fan of this other theater person at the time. It was a big famous avant-garde theater, right? But so we did a production of Peer Gynt, which is an Henrik Ibsen play, and I played the lead character in that, and that just kind of blew my mind apart. And I just thought, oh my God, I understood art in a different way. I understood dramatic art and performing art in a different way. Peer Gynt is one of the largest, longest plays in the canon of modern drama, and the role is one of the largest. And he rewrote the whole thing. He just took a lot of liberty with it because it's public domain anyway, and it was so cool and so fun. And I just thought, oh, I guess I'm going to be doing this for a living. So then I went to graduate school. I went to the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. I have to audition and all that. I only auditioned for there and Yale didn't take me. So I got into ACT, and ACT was influential, really influential. It's a conservatory program, classical training. And I was there for 2 years. Then they invited me to join the main company on the stage for a third year. At that time, that's how it operated. And I did a bunch of plays on the main stage there, and all of that it all confirmed, like every step confirmed, oh, you're doing the right thing. It's more than just talent. There's more there. There's a desire there, and there's work there that I appreciated. And of course, my people were there, right? Like performers always sort of talk about finding their people, and it's true. Like most of us are outcasts or feel different or other or whatever, and I certainly felt that way. But I got actors, and they got me, and then after my third year at ACT, I went to LA. I always wanted to be on television and film. I wanted to do on camera work. I didn't really want to go to New York and like suffer. That seemed ridiculous to me. So it was a long slog in LA before I started really working. I did had a lot of day jobs. I had a lot of a lot of failure. So that's tough coming out of a program, getting your degree and working professionally on stage, and then moving to the big city and having trouble getting an agent, let alone an audition. So that took several years. And then I started to do some commercial work, which was cool. And then the next level for me was I started to take class at the Groundlings. I met a woman, and we got married, and she was a Groundling, and I started to take class at the Groundlings, sketch comedy in Hollywood, West Hollywood. And that, again, like I'd taken improv in grad school, but it just scared me. I felt uncomfortable doing it, and the Groundlings just turned that right around for me. So by no means am I an expert improviser, but it changed my work. It changed my perception around auditioning, around creating, around writing, around all of that. And out of that, I had sort of the courage to write. I was getting older. I was in my 30s at this point, and my wife and I were talking about having kids. And I just thought, well, I need to make a last stab at this because I was working day jobs. I was a bellman in a hotel and drove a limousine. I did all kinds of things. But I thought, okay, well, I need to make a stab at this. And then that's it, because I can't be working these day jobs and then keep trying to hustle with show business. So I wrote this pilot for a half-hour comedy that starred me. And I had a partner at the time, a friend who wanted to direct something, and he had some money and I had some money, and we put it in. This was 2006 or 7. And we shot a half-hour pilot called Hollywood Residential, about a hapless home repair guy to the stars who has no skill, but just really wants to pursue his Hollywood career and meet famous people. So it was a little bit of my nightmare of like, oh, what if I had no choice but to do like construction work, which I'm not very good at, right? I know how to throw a drill basically, but that's about it. And that was good. And I showed it to my wife's manager at the time, Paul Young, and he liked it and happened to know that the STARZ network was looking for something that was celebrity related, but scripted and funny and half hour. And they bought it for a season. So then all of a sudden I went from literally like the smallest acting jobs to starring in and producing and co-writing my own show on a national cable network. So that was huge. And led to other jobs. We only did one season, but there was other acting work along the way, including How I Met Your Mother, which is sort of the thing I'm known for, this recurring character called the Naked Guy. And then I started to direct a little bit. I started to, I wanted to, I wasn't one of those actors who said, well, what I really want to do is direct, which was sort of a cliche in Hollywood at the time. But I realized I just wanted to try it. And I loved comedy. Comedy was my thing. So I just wanted to be a comedy director and see where that took me. And so I shot a few things on my own, and I won a couple of like competition-y things. And I started to shoot commercials. I had a client that was the CEO of a company on the East Coast, and he had seen something I did that on spec that he liked, and he said this could fit, something like this could fit with what we're trying to do. And so I wrote something for him, and then we shot it, and that won a bunch of awards. And then yeah, I just kept doing that kind of thing, still acting, still directing a little bit. And then I met my current wife, having divorced my first wife, and she was out here. She was teaching at UNLV in the psychology department, and I was done living in LA, and I was directing more, which you can do really from anywhere. So much of it is prep work over the phone. So I moved out here to be with her, and then she suggested I take a look at maybe teaching as a thing to pass the time and make a little more money. And so that's when I met Nate Bynum in the theater department at UNLV, and he gave me a sitcom class for a little bit, and that was incredible. I really fell in love with teaching. And then I met you, and now we're here.
Wow. Well, I'm done. That's the
Woman
end
for
of the
lunch.
podcast. You answered all the
Okay,
questions. I'm just
thanks so much.
no, but
You
there
asked how I
was
got here.
I loved it. And you talked about what you've done and what you're currently doing. So
Mhm.
nailed it. You talked about doing commercials on spec. And for those that don't know what on spec means, could you like kind of briefly explain what that is?
Yeah, it's on speculation, right? Speculation that somebody will buy it, but that's not really what you do anymore. You just you make it for your reel, basically. And so I nobody had ordered a commercial from me, although I had dipped my toes in with Tongle, which is still a site where they have real creative briefs that you can like sign up online to tackle, and they sort of stage you through it. But I just use that as an opportunity to look at creative briefs and think about and storyboard and that kind of thing.
So when you're
Just to sort
doing
of train myself, because I never went to film school,
Mm. Yeah, but the best film school is just doing it sometimes.
That's what I would say. But yeah.
Um, yeah, so when I stalked your website and looked at all your fun reels
Good.
and whatnot. I do have to say the St. Lawrence Film Festival one is probably the funniest one that I thought
Yeah.
was I laughed so hard. I was like, this is so Adam Paul. It's
What?
not even funny.
So I haven't even mentioned that. I mean, as it turns out, the St. Lawrence International Film Festival is my creation as well. So after I moved here and was it was before I started teaching, I wanted to do something else. I wanted to start a business. I wanted to see what that was like, and I don't know anything except what I know. So a film festival seemed like the natural fit, and this part of the world up there, St. Lawrence, the St. Lawrence Valley, the St. Lawrence Seaway is where my wife is from, and there are a bunch of colleges up there. And I thought this could be a good location to do this thing. And what we did was, it was a team effort, but all of this was my sheer force of will trying to make something happen. No film festival has ever been across international borders. And this is right at the Canadian border. And I thought, right near Ottawa, the capital of Canada. And I thought, there's an opportunity here. So what if we had stuff on the American side and stuff on the Canadian side? And the American side is very rural. And Dan Aykroyd was our guest of honor. And we did a 35th anniversary screening of The Blues Brothers, which is a favorite movie of mine. So I got this. A lot of it was just my selfish need to like also make a commercial for my own thing. But we had the great support of a lot of people, and it was a cool thing to do. It was not, unfortunately, sustainable on my model, but it was definitely worth making an effort. So that's what that commercial was for this film festival that I had started. I'm glad you liked it.
I like that commercial. I mean, most of those commercials I thought were funny. I was gonna there's two questions watching all those commercials. One is when someone approaches you or you're doing one, like on your own. As
Mhm.
the director of a commercial, are you also writing it? And are you doing most of like, I guess, pre-production, or do you also have like a large team, like say when you're doing a film or short film or stuff like that?
Um, it depends. I've done all kinds of things. I started writing my own stuff and shooting it, right? And then or finding clients who need that, businesses that need video ads, and I'd be an all-in-one kind of thing. The one thing I don't do is shoot, right? I'm not a camera person. I don't get the technology. I mean, I get it, but I'm not going to learn that because my brain can't handle it. So
Okay.
there's that, but there's also I've worked with Odd Machine, which is a big production company in Chicago, and I did a big Caterpillar spot for them that actually shot here in town, coincidentally. But and that was fun. I did not write that. They had a team that wrote that. I've shot stuff for, as I was starting advertising, video advertising was just starting to be something that happened online and not just on TV. And so there was a chance to have some longer form, short form stuff. So not 30 seconds, not 60 seconds, but 2 minutes long, or you could tell a better story. So I kind of fit that mold for a while. And some of them were with agencies. You have a big ad agency that is serviced by a production company to make the commercial. So they'll create the copy and the content, and on behalf of the client, and then you come in and say, okay, well, this is how we make it happen, right? And I've worked with other production companies. I work with my own production company, the Super Bowl internet spots that we did a while ago was my production company working with VW, who was the client of Edelman PR at the time, which was technically the agency, right? So there's a bigger crew involved. There are writers involved, and that thing was live during the Super Bowl. We were shooting very short spots, 10 seconds long, that we would then immediately post online. So we had to create a war room, and we had to create this situation where the writers were watching the game. They'd write some fun copy around the scoring, and then we'd hand it to our actors who were waiting. We'd shoot them, and it was an easy locked off 2-shot. And then we had pre-shot some stuff that we could cut into that. Then we hand that to the editor. They do whatever cutting and branding needs to happen, and then they post that online immediately. So it's within 20 minutes of an event happening during the Super Bowl. Not live, but almost live, right? And that was just really cool to be involved with, and it was cool to have my production company involved with that. And yeah, so you're collaborating with all kinds of people all the time, including a whole other production company that had shot an original spot that our spots were based off of, and so they were on set just as part of the partnership, right? So there's that. Or there's, something I've written for my friend's company on the East Coast. He wants to be in it and he uses them. They put them online. They put them on their website. A lot of their work was in Asia Pacific region. And so these things were broadcast in a different way than traditional broadcast media, but distributed probably more than would be distributed on traditional broadcast media. So even if it's just a small crew, and I work also very closely with a production company out of Boulder, Colorado, called Waypoint Films, and that relationship has been great over the years, and they're really terrific about collaborating with me and any clients that sort of come my way. So it's a catch-all, right? There's no black and white to it, just like everything else in Hollywood.
Yeah, I did also notice that some of these commercials you're either directing yourself, you're directing dogs, you're directing children, you're directing people, or like just actors, right? And I was gonna ask you, some people are always like, don't direct children and dogs and animals and
Right.
cats. You also directed, there was some cats in there too, because you did the cat person, dog
Did a
person,
Swiffer spot.
Yeah. So, kind of a fun question. Which is more difficult to direct? No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to answer that. But yeah,
Children aren't that bad. Pets aren't that bad either. I mean, it's all about the prep, right? Just like anything else. It's all about making sure you have wranglers on set, you understand where the animals are coming from, you make the request for a certain type of animal. Some people brought their own for that Swiffer spot, and we needed to just vet the animals and make sure they were going to be able to be managed properly. Yeah. So, and children, they're not that bad. I like people. So for me, it's not about managing people. It's about relating to them and giving them the space to be, because I'm a trained actor. I always come from that point of view.
Yeah, so do you think that through your past, I guess you did a lot of acting on stage and then you kind of switched off into more film and screen? How do you think that has helped you, I guess, now as a professor, as a director, and I mean, you also still do acting. How does all of the past training kind of correlate to your newer, I guess, roles that you've taken on?
Well, teaching and directing are very similar, I think. In the sense that, at least the way I teach, I like to be aware of everybody and aware of what's going on, trust that other people are going to be able to contribute to the conversation, and be patient with other people. My training as an actor gave me many, 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 many gifts as a stage actor, not the least of which was timing, not the least of which was an understanding of time as well. So not just comedic timing, but an understanding of translating recorded action or performed action to timed outcome. And in television, particularly advertising, that's important because you're going to have a 15 to 30-second spot, maybe 60 seconds, but you have to keep those things in mind, right? Comedy always requires that as well, I think. God forbid the pace slows, right? And then understood, what I then learned from directing was knowing when to trust editing and to know that editing not will just cover your ass, but will be your friend if you're shooting for the right values, as Professor Keenan Diaz would say, right? And you're shooting those proper values, editing will enhance everything you're doing. And so learning that just took some time, but I always come from the acting side, and I'm a big believer that the differences between the departments of visual storytelling are minimal, right? We're all kind of doing the same thing. And from the acting side, you didn't ask this, but I'm just going to tell you, right? It's about 3 essential questions. What do I want? What's in my way? How do I get what I want? What's in my character's way? What does my character want? What's in my character's way? How does my character get what they want? And writing starts from that point. Editing is going to be motivated by that point. Camera angles are going to be motivated by that point, in the best cases, right? So I've just always leaned in on the acting stuff, knowing that I've done it long enough that my instincts have been, it's like my genes were spliced into storytelling and character development in a way that I'm still learning, but in a way that allows everybody to do their work and everybody to tell the same story at the same time.
Yeah, I would agree. Throughout the time, through the episodes that I've been doing already for the podcast, I think that's one of the things I've learned very quickly is that everyone thinks there's big differences between all the like actors, directors, screenwriters. But at the end of the day, I think we're all trying to tell a story or like storytell is the main part of this whole thing. And I think discovering that through the podcast is something that everyone that has come on has somehow hinted at.
Right.
Which I think is
because
crucial.
they all have an objective, right? Characters have an objective. Everybody on the set has an objective. There's always an obstacle. Time and money are the guaranteed obstacles, and there's always a way around it. And I cut you off, and I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good.
But I see everything through that lens, especially the older I get and the more I teach. I see a lot through that lens. It's made life easier for me, but it's also, I'm not shoehorning. I know I'm not shoehorning departments together in order to like in order to make my theories work. It really does work that way. And I just think you know, we are all doing the same job, and we are all also, if we focus on the story closely, even if you're a grip, even if you're PA or you're crafty, you are then serving the larger purpose of the work.
I kind of want to talk about voiceover and podcasting because
Yeah.
you didn't mention it that much. You didn't mention the podcast at all.
Well, I didn't. You're right. But you asked me how I got to here,
Yeah.
and I
So how did
assumed
you?
here meant starting at UNLV.
Yeah, we're bouncing. Let's go to okay. So I don't know if you'd consider the podcast and voice acting what you're currently doing or what you've done. What would you say? Are you actively podcasting?
Yes. So I produce and direct Pod 115, which is a fiction podcast that came out of a theater class. And in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be finishing up the third season of that show. And we've won awards, and we've, gotten incredible reviews. And it's co-written by the students. It's acted by the students, and they all get a hand in producing it and editing it and all of that, right? So that is very much, and that's just a simple dovetailing of my desires with what is available at the university and what I can devise for the sake of the students and a greater creative goal. And the story of Pod 115, and you can go to pod115.com and listen to it yourselves. But it's great. They're short episodes. They're 10 minutes long each. There's 9 episodes per season. And it's a great story about students at UNLV who discover an alien in the desert and and then try to save its life. And I've always wanted to tell a story about aliens and space stuff. I love that stuff. And I've always been fascinated with the probably cliched at this point, but I think important subject of, it's not, the subject isn't cliched, but the metaphor is cliched of what it is to be alien and other, what it is to be, an illegal alien, what they used to call illegal aliens. Now they're immigrants, right? Or whatever. Anybody who's coming to this country for a better life, who is othered and marginalized in any way. That's a constant problem in this free country of ours. And I that fascinates me. That conflict fascinates me. And then I'm just interested in, spacemen coming down to Earth and changing all of our attitudes or whatever it is. So I'm fascinated by UFOs. I'm fascinated by that stuff. So this felt like a great way to do that. And we started it on sort of a whim, as sort of an experiment, and it turned into this great thing that I'm really proud of. So there's that. I do voiceover work. I audition all the time. I work all the time. I'm doing an audiobook concurrently with this interview, not right now, but after I'm done with you, I've got to record some chapters. And I love it. It's been a great profession for me. I worry about it in the near future and present regarding AI and how voices are being cloned and synthesized, right? There's synthetic voices now that sound very real. And I think it's going to take a chunk out of a lot of work from a lot of people. At the same time, there's no stopping it, except to remain as human as we can, what I call essential humanity in all of our work. And we should worry about it in film too. I mean, Justine Bateman, if you're not following her on Twitter or Instagram, is very, very vocal. She wrote a piece in Newsweek just last week about AI in the entertainment industry, because it's currently on the mind of writers who are striking in Hollywood, but it's about to be on the mind of actors who are striking. And the digitizing of performance is here and very authentic looking. And there are all kinds of business arguments for why that's a good thing. And then for me personally, as someone who makes a living doing it, it's terrifying, and I want to, destroy all the robots. But there's also an opportunity probably to utilize that technology for good. But it's going to hit hard in the voiceover world. And I know a lot of people are talking about it, and there's not a lot of knowledge of, or not a lot of great ideas at this point of what to do about it. But there's a lot to think about there. I love, I think in character voices and cartoons and animation and even video games, those voices will probably require humans for a bit. But for uh, for commercial stuff, for telephony, which is a line of work for people where, please hold, they'll be getting to your call in just a minute. That automated, it's called IVR, right? Interactive voice response. That stuff is going to be, there will be no humans behind that. I can't imagine business or buyer spending money on a live actor when they could use an automated voice that sounds pretty much just as human over a phone, for much less, and can be changeable with keystrokes rather than bringing an actor in to re-record.
Do you think the main, I don't know what the word is. I guess the main catalyst of like why AI is taking everything by storm is because it's cheaper. Like
Ultimately,
money?
yeah, it's convenient.
Yeah.
It's convenient and it's cheaper, and it's machine learning. And so it's gotten to a point where it can very rapidly learn. You can train it on anything, including a human voice, including facial expressions, including visual art, right? There's a
Yeah.
thing on TV today about it. Adobe is taking on an AI. People are finding ways to monetize it, which is cool. And they're finding ways, the argument around visual stuff is that it was trained on all images on the internet. And so people's original creative work was being sort of pillaged to create other visual things. And so we have to find ways to protect ourselves and that kind of thing. And that's what's going to happen with actors. It's going to happen with voice actors. It's just going, but it's going to change things permanently.
Yeah, for sure.
Except theater, which I don't
Yes.
really work in much anymore, but theater live performance will, I think, gain value. We're talking 10 minutes down the road. Oh, we're talking maybe 5-10 years down the road where there will be there'll be AI created movies that look real. And the uncanny valley, which is a whole other conversation, but that uncanny valley gets deeper and gets harder to distinguish. So our job as artists, as human artists, I think, is to make sure that uncanny valley is as deep as it can be, so that people can understand what's human and what our contributions are versus what's not.
Yeah. I think that theater needs that boost too, because after the pandemic, right, I feel like it's not as prominent. Whereas like I still go because I enjoy it. But I think that you're right in the fact that it might help theater because people want that
Well, they
real.
could certainly use a boost. It's a terrible way to make a living in America, theater. Sorry.
No, yeah.
Friends in the theater department won't like that, but it is a terrible way to make a living.
Yep.
It's just you're eking it out. Now, in Las Vegas, it's not so bad.
We were talking about theater getting a boost because of AI and the uncanny valley. I should we talk about what the uncanny valley is for people that don't know?
We can. I'm not an expert. Why don't you talk about it?
Well, the example I was given was like Hulk, the Incredible Hulk movie, that
Mm-hmm.
the way that the face was kind of like teetering on the uncanny valley, which means like it
Mm.
looks like a human, but there's something about it that doesn't really feel human.
Right. Right.
Your example that you gave in class was like a zombie and like a human. There's like some
Mm.
kind of vibe that's weird but not. Um, and with AI, the voices can be kind of uncanny too. Like, and with like Unreal Engine or GTA. GTA is a good example. I feel like I've always experienced uncanny valley on that because it looks real, but then it sometimes doesn't. Like they
Well, as soon as
never,
somebody's walking in the background, it doesn't look so real, right?
yeah, and they run into a
Those
wall and
NPCs
like a
are sort
little,
of, yeah.
yeah,
But that's going to change. That's going to change because that animation can be generated via AI that's trained on footage of someone walking. And so the uncanny valley gets shallower, right? I might have misspoke before. The uncanny valley gets shallower and shallower as things become more realistic seeming. and it was created by I believe a roboticist, a Japanese roboticist, and I don't know his name, but it's a graph that you can see, and there's this dip in our response to things that are human-like or life-like, but not quite. And it's really a measure of disturbance of our being disturbed by something, but that gets shallower and shallower. So I believe that an artist's best defense against that is to maintain a certain amount of essential humanity, which is, how do you maintain humanity? I guess it's to remember our essential humanity, as though it's a sci-fi battle against robots, and our ability to love is the only thing that will save us all. There's something to that, I think, on the macro level of creating that. And there's plenty of cool things to create with AI that is also original, right? So I'm not violently opposed to all of it. I mean, the world keeps moving forward and we have to adapt. But this stuff that we do that is based on human performance, and as a director, you may well work with AI characters, and your job suddenly is animator, or just like story editor, as these characters, these puppet master, right? But I believe no matter how good a character voice gets with AI, it's still going to lack the weirdness of humanity that only a real human can deliver. People will be fooled by the other stuff, though. Don't mistake my love for humanity for ignorance. A lot of people will be fooled, and that's where all these regulations are coming in, where our government is looking at how do we make sure somebody doesn't deep fake the president of the United States to talk about starting a war with another, right? Like that could happen. And protections have to be put in place for that kind of thing. But I think it also needs to be put in place, and that's what the writers are striking about. It's what the actors are going to be striking about, is there have to be protections put in place that don't. And I had my client sign a rider on this audiobook I'm doing. It's an AI rider that they won't sell my voice or give my voice away. They will protect my voice securely from being used by some data scraping bot that then puts it into AI, and suddenly I'm hearing my voice all over TikTok, like that lady just a couple of years ago, right? Whose voice got scraped from something. It was a form of AI that reproduced her voice, and she's, use this sound on your video and you'll get good luck for 5 years, right? You just hear that chipper voice throughout. She didn't do that. A machine did that, copying her voice. So yeah, terrifying.
Yeah, I always think of I don't know if you'll get it. You might get this. I always think of the iCarly episode when Neville edits. He's like the nemesis of the girls, and he edits them from all their shorts on the web series to say that Carly told Sam to push someone's grandmother down, when really she was like check on the grandma or something. But he found like clips from like years ago from their
Right.
web series, and it made it sound like she wanted to push the grandma down. And I think
Right.
that it's always kind of like this idea of AI and even just editing in general, like it's so crazy the depths you can go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it will go deeper.
Yeah.
It will go deeper. So we have to be vigilant. And you're about to enter the industry at a time where it will be a real tool for you, and it will, I hope, prick your conscience in different ways, so that you think a little more. You think very deeply, but that we all think a little more deeply about what we're doing, why we're doing it, what's significant about it.
Yeah. I'm gonna backtrack
I love
just a
that you
little.
assumed I knew anything about iCarly.
Yeah, I didn't want to say you didn't, but then the minute I said, I was like, damn, he's not gonna get
Well,
this.
I'll tell you, I know more than I used to, because I read McMurtry's book, I'm Glad My Mom Died. What's her name?
Oh,
Her
Jeanette
first name?
McCurdy's book.
Jeanette McCurdy. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah,
It's
no, it's okay.
brilliant. And it's, if you can read the audiobook, if you can listen to the audiobook, I highly recommend it. She narrates it. And it's it's really, really beautifully done. She's a great writer. It's very funny and very, very upsetting. And she deserves a medal, that young woman.
I need to read that. I've been wanting to read that.
Yeah.
Backtracking a little because we talked you talked briefly about like Hollywood Residential and
Mhm.
working with stars, and then everyone's favorite thing that they talk about at school is the naked man
Mhm.
bit. How did that screenwriting experience, I guess, with Hollywood Residential play into the commercial roles at all, or how you are now with how you approach a project?
Well, it taught me a lot about comedy. It taught me a lot about comedy within a 30-minute format. It also taught me that writing's very hard for me. I don't, I'm who is it? Dorothy Parker said, I enjoy having written. And that is certainly my experience. I really appreciate having written something, but I do not like doing it in the moment. It's painful for me. I think I have a little adult ADD. I don't like sitting still for very long. It's hard. At the same time, I have ideas and I like to get them down. And commercial writing fit a bill for me because it's shorter. So, and it tends to be one joke, right? That's just like a short film. The best short films are kind of a single joke, a setup and a punchline, right? So I gravitated toward writing for that and had very little problem writing for that. I like having guardrails. I like, and certainly Hollywood Residential taught me that, just about the network requirements, studio requirements, and time requirements. I like being told this needs to be 30 seconds long and it's got to include this amount of information about this thing, and legal says this, and so it's got to be this way. I like that puzzle solving challenge of how do I make that sound natural, and whose voice do I put it in, and what's the character like, and what's the environment, and how can we make that immediately funny visually as well as physically. I love physical comedy. So is there a way we can, make this old man, raise the stakes for this old man who wants to buy an oil filter from Cat, and let's have him compete with this other guy, and they run in slow motion and make all the crazy faces, and he throws a jelly donut at the guy. And I mean, that comes out of nothing, and it's very satisfying to me to serve. I'm a big service guy. So to serve a client and the need, even though it's, consumerist needs or whatever, I like that. I like being able to satisfy somebody else's need creatively. That
I
could be
think
read very, very vulgarly if you wanted to like chop that up and
don't
put
edit
weird
it,
sex
AI.
music underneath it. Yeah, please, AI, don't touch my voice.
Um, I think you and I are similar, but not with writing. I don't like editing, but like I also understand the need for it, and like
Right.
I can, I'll sit and do it if I really want to, but I would
Right.
rather not.
I
Because
love editing because it's a form of writing that's purely visual for me.
mm,
So it's storytelling in a very visual way, and I love discovering a new moment because we've cut one frame on one end and extended another frame on the other end. But that's, we're all different that way. Writing for me is just hard. My brain goes all over the place. So.
yeah, I enjoy the like look going through dailies, like after we shoot, and then I get all
Mm-hmm.
the stuff, all the video, all the footage, and then I'll write notes like, oh, this take was very good for this
Right.
reason, and then I'll show the
Right.
editor that. Then usually I give the editor a chance, and then we'll
Right.
talk through it again. Like I'm not anti, like I'm never in the editing room. I
No, but
just it's so time consuming, and I'm a
right.
perfectionist, so it's like, no, I gotta have that, and I'm like, no, I don't want to backseat edit.
Right. I also, even though I love editing, I have put a cap. I don't edit my own stuff. I really try not to, because I believe in the collaborative process, but also because there's only so much new software I can learn how to use. And I can use Final Cut Pro at a very simple, like put some frames together, some clips together level. I actually had to learn some audio software for Pod 115, and that almost broke me. But I had to do it for the class, and I was like, well, I got to do it for the class. But it taught me, like, I'm not learning anything else. Not learning anything else in terms of advanced software. If I can hire somebody or collaborate with somebody, I'm going to do that because it's going to be better anyway. I have a tendency to, and I'm going off the rails here, but I have a tendency to wear all the hats, and the older I get, the more exhausting that is, and the more foolish it seems to me when really there's so many better ideas than what I can come up with, and I am slowly feeling less responsibility to come up with all the ideas.
Well, that's a good segue into like what you're planning for your future right now. Do you have anything cool besides the audiobook you're working on?
I have to finish editing season 3 of Pod 115, which is very creative, and because I don't have the budget to hire any former students to come and help me edit, I have some people who are co-producing. Sarah Littman's co-producing and helping out with just sort of rough assembling some stuff. But those details of that audio, and I am a perfectionist, and I want to make sure it all sounds authentic and the levels are right, and that we're not taking just some stock footsteps through mud, but finding the exact right footsteps or recording it if we need it. It's very time consuming, the audio editing process. So that'll be the rest of my summer. And then I do want to direct a short. I made my bid to Sherman, if you know Sherman, who wrote a fantastic short at UNLV that won the Right Stuff competition this spring. And as soon as I read it, I was like, I want to direct it, about a work of art in a museum, and what art really is, and who makes it, and why that's important. It's just brilliant. It's almost a silent film. It has all of the hallmarks of a classic Charlie Chaplin-esque kind of piece, and he's going to direct it as well. He should, along with Maymay's class, I believe. And that is as it should be. But it was the first time in a while that I was like, oh, I want to direct this. And so I do want to do something, and I really want to do it with UNLV students. So if it's not this semester, maybe it'll be in the spring or the following fall, but I'm going to find something. Of course I could write something, but I am hesitant because I don't have time, and I hate it. But I would love to find somebody's very short, fun, funny, physical comedy piece that's elevated in a sense that it has some depth to it, but is still silly and fun. But that's not really a plan at this point. It's just I'm keeping an eye out for it. I keep talking with Chuck Aiken, who's this terrific local producer in town, who now I think is helping run View Studios. He wants to collaborate on something, so maybe we'll find something together and do that. There's lots of great stuff happening in town around tax incentives, hopefully, and construction of new studio space, and it's going to take several years, but it's exciting to be here now and to think about creating something new and being a part of it in a material way that has me optimistic and hopeful for working on something. But teaching is a full-time gig for me now, and I love it, and it's important to me, and I'm still learning, right? That's the thing about editing that I love, is it does teach me something new about story every time I engage in it, and so does teaching, right? Teaching acting teaches me more about acting, and I'm excited to continue to do that, especially in the film department at UNLV.
What advice would you give to people that are like scared to go into film or, the arts? Or is there some kind of advice that you like to give to your students before they graduate or whatever? What do you want to say?
Well, there are two things I tell my acting students, and I think they apply to anybody that wants to be a creative professional. And the first is you have to baby bird it. And what that means is it comes from a dentist of mine who noticed my gums were receding a little bit on my molars because I was using my electric toothbrush too vigorously I didn't have cavities. I have good, nice, clean teeth, but my gums are starting to go. And she said, well, you're brushing too hard with your electric toothbrush. You need to hold it like a baby bird. And it was one of the great educational moments of my life, because I was like, this dentist understands teaching better than I ever could, because I never forgot about the baby bird. And it's true about our creativity, our choices in our creative lives, what we write, what we choose to improvise, what we shoot, where we train the camera, how we focus it, how we operate with one another. It is a great rule for life to hold it like a baby bird, right? All of it. If you hold it too tight, you'll kill it. If you hold it too loosely, it will fly away. Maybe it's meant to fly away, but the idea is to hold it with respect, with tenderness, with love, and with an appreciation for its own life, right? So there's that. The other thing I tell my acting students is to around and find out, or FAFO. That's the sticker I give my students who complete a class with me. They get a little red square sticker that says FAFO, which is fuck around and find out. Because your creative work is nothing unless you take a risk. Obviously, those risks have to be calculated or within certain boundaries. But if you're serving a story and a character and an audience and producers and a director and yourself, you need to still have room for play in that. You need to fuck around and find out. You need to discover, right? So fucking around is playing, finding out is discovering. And discovery is the name of the game in whatever we do. So those are creative suggestions for people who are a little intimidated about entering this world. The other thing I will say is, look, I have a certain amount of talent, but if I could achieve what I've achieved, anybody can achieve what I've achieved. Someone who hates writing creates a show and stars in it. You have to be determined. You have to work hard, and you have to have a tolerance for rejection and a certain amount of pain. But it is not traumatizing pain. It shouldn't be traumatizing pain. And it should be the kind of pain that impels you to move forward. And if you're moving forward, as I think it was Thelonious Monk who said, don't look back. They might be coming after you. I agree. Like, you can have regrets, but don't spend a lot of time on them. Don't spend too much time looking back or dwelling on your successes even. You got to celebrate them, but you have to move forward. You have to keep moving forward for the sake of the reason you were put on this planet, whether you believe in a God or a higher power or not. You're here for a limited amount of time in this skin suit. And during that time, you can take risks and get back up again and know that you're strong enough to do that and change your mind later if you want and do something else. But if you have an instinct toward this creative life, now is the time, when you're getting out of school, when things are opening for you, to try it and know that it'll be scary, but the sky will not fall. You have to get a day job. That's the other advice. Get a day job. Most UNLV students do, right? Which is why I love them. Work, pay your bills, be responsible, don't go into debt, and keep creating stuff and keep imagining and keep faith that you are drawn to it for a reason. And like any good actor, you have to ask yourself every day, why? Why am I drawn to it? Right? I have many, 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 many days as a professional actor when I was like, why am I on this? And the answer always was, what else are you going to do? Right? That was my answer. Also, when it's good, it's amazing. I love it. Right? So there's that. Finally, my other piece of advice to ask yourself every day is, what would a professional do? WWAPD. Right? I'm going to get bracelets made up for that, and that'll be your present if you study with me again as well. But ask yourself every day, what would a professional do? Because chances are, even if you haven't trained much, you'll know that a professional isn't a dick. You'll know that a professional goes along to get along. You'll know that a professional respects all the people they work with, and you'll know that a professional respects their own time and their own energy to take care of themselves wherever they're working, however they're working.
Wow. I honestly, great advice. I'm gonna ponder that when I edit this. I'm gonna be like, damn. Um, this led me to something before we
Yeah.
end. Do you
Oh, good.
ever, do you ever, or I guess imposter syndrome has come up with some of my friends and I, getting approached to direct something, even though it's a short,
Hmm.
sometimes I'm still like, why, why?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
do you experience that? And what do you have to say for us that like contemplate
Hmm.
that or go through that?
I do experience it, and as someone who just started teaching 6 years ago, I experienced it at 49 years old. So it doesn't stop. But like an actor, I had to think, what do I want? What's in my way? How do I get it? And what's in my way, very often, the first thing in my way is imposter syndrome, or that I don't deserve, or I'm not good enough, or they made a mistake, or they're going to catch me, or, fill in the blank there. But so thinking about what you really want on a daily basis, and that can change, but thinking about what you really want in terms of making films and telling stories and building a resume and having something to hand to people on the steps along the way to what success looks like for you. Is directing a short going to help you on that way? Probably will for you, right? For me too, by the way, right? Although I'm not really doing it for any future reason, except I like to do it and I like to work with students and I like bringing attention to UNLV because it puts me in a service position, right? Which is always good for me. It's always better to be in a service position. So in terms of doubt, self-doubt, um, look, I set out to become an actor and nothing was going to stop me. And so when self doubt reared its head, which it did all the time, I was just like, well, this is what I'm meant to do. Right. I had some dumb, blind faith, not to, again, invoke your name, but I had this blind faith. And I don't know if that's a good thing because I sacrificed a lot because of that, including having children of my own and having, a different kind of life. um but it got me to where I am, and I have never been happier, and I have stepchildren who I love like my own, and hopefully in a couple of years I'll have a grandchild, believe it or not, and that's I'll take that. But I don't know if blind faith is the answer. I think um self-assessment and asking yourself, I couldn't imagine not acting and working some other job as an alternative to acting. Um, but if I could have, I would have bailed out a long time ago. So the self doubt was just something that, or the imposter syndrome was just, it comes with the territory. It comes with the territory. And those people who look like they've got it all together don't. You can't let your imposter syndrome get in the way of a dream that is rooted in um, something that's truly a part of you. So if your dream is truly rooted into a part of you, you'll pursue it and you'll do what you got to do to get by, and you will find a way to make it happen.
Great. I have no words. Like you're like profound today. I don't know.
Oh,
Um,
well, this is what happens when I'm on break, right? In the regular semester, I'm only teaching one class right now, so I've got a lot of time to think about it. I highly
um,
recommend reading. I'm reading right now, The Science of Storytelling, and I don't have the author's name off the tip of my head, but it's phenomenal. And if you want to understand how important storytelling is to who we are and what we do, and why our work is so tied into this essential humanity that we've been talking about around AI, it gives me hope. But it's a great read. It's a really good education on how our brains are wired and how people relate to one another and why they relate to one another that way.
Great. I'll take a look at it for sure. The final question I always ask is how can we follow your journey?
Instagram, real Adam Paul, RealAdampaul. That is also the same on Twitter. Adam Paul Directs on Facebook if you want, but Instagram is where I spend most of my time, and I'm happy to engage always.
Okay.
And
cool.
sometimes I'm mildly political there if you are sensitive to that. Listeners of Friendly Film Chats, Fireside Film Chats.
Whatever it is. I love it. Everyone messes up. It's great. Do it again. No.
Friendly Fireside Film Chats, right?
Yeah, friendly film fireside chats.
Friendly Film Fireside Chats?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
I don't know what you just said, but it
corrected
sounded
that
fun.
back in class. I should have fixed
should've.
that.
Oh, shoulda, woulda, coulda.
You got to commit
Anyways.
to it.
Yeah, I've committed to it. It's just funny. Every time someone comes on, they're like, friendly fire. I'm like, not friendly fire. Close. Close Vanessa car. Okay, well, I really appreciate you taking the time, Adam. So weird. Professor Paul.
You can call me Adam. Listen, we're going to work together a lot in the future. You're not going to call me Professor Paul out in the real world, so you might as well get used to it. It's my pleasure. I thank you for taking the time. I like to talk about me always.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't, right? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good job, Faith.
Friendly Film Fireside Chats.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Friendly Film Fireside Chats. Follow us wherever you listen to podcasts and be sure to rate us. Reach out to us on Instagram at friendlyfilm_fireside and like us on Facebook. See you on the next Fireside Chat. Friendly Film Fireside Chat is produced and edited by Faith Nault, music composition by Thea de Guzman, social media managed by Gabby Nault. This is a Faith Nault Film podcast.